Thelma's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, but she didn't care. Every step was measured, controlled, because she refused to let him see her panic. "Careful," Ryu Tasik said, appearing beside her before she even reached the reception hall. His hand brushed hers, not accidentally, and the scent of his cologne hit her like a warning. "People might think you're emotional." She yanked her hand free. "Let go." His smile sharpened. "Still dramatic." "Some things never change." Thelma's stomach twisted. She had walked into Myra's wedding, expecting laughter, champagne, and polite smiles, but not subtle cruelty. But there it was, the unspoken jab, the reminder she had failed at his standard. "And no ring," Tasik said quietly, letting his eyes linger on her bare left hand. "I guess some things never get fixed either." Heat rushed through her chest. The embarrassment was immediate and piercing. Guests nearby didn't notice the exchange yet, but Thelma could feel it like a brand. Tasik was making sure she felt small, alone, and exposed. Before she could respond, the air shifted. A low, heavy presence that demanded attention. Conversations faltered mid-sentence, laughter stumbled, and the music seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Guests subtly parted, almost instinctively. Sirin entered. He moved with a calm that carried danger in every step. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black that felt ceremonial, his eyes scanned the room briefly before settling on Thelma. He didn't glance at anyone else. He didn't need to. Everyone else reacted before he spoke. Men straightened. Women shifted uneasily. Servers instinctively stepped aside. A whisper ran through the room like electricity. "That's Sirin." "Is he bothering you?" Sirin asked, low and calm, but the authority in his voice made Tasik step back without thinking. "I'm fine," Thelma said, though her pulse was hammering. Sirin's gaze fell on Tasik. "You're standing too close." Tasik stiffened. "Excuse me." Sirin didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Move." Tasik blinked, the confidence he had worn like armor fading in seconds. The whispers in the room seemed louder now, though no one said a word. Everyone knew what would happen if he defied Sirin. Sirin offered Thelma his arm. "Walk with me." Her instincts screamed caution. Her pride whispered survival. She took it. They moved, and the room obeyed. Guests instinctively made space. Phones subtly lifted. Conversations faltered again. Even Tasik's friends seemed hesitant to breathe too loudly. Thelma could feel the power radiating off Sirin, thick and absolute, making her pulse accelerate. "You didn't tell me he'd be here," she whispered. "You didn't ask," he replied. They reached the bar. Sirin didn't release her hand. "You shouldn't have come alone." "I didn't know I wouldn't be," she admitted. Sirin's expression softened briefly. "I was prepared." Across the room, Tasik's jaw tightened. His ego bruised, he tried to maintain composure. "Interesting choice," he muttered under his breath, his glance sharp. Sirin's dark eyes flicked toward him. "Choice implies chance," he said, low, deliberate. Tasik's brows knit. "What does that mean?" "It means she is here with me because I decided she would be." Thelma's breath caught. "Sirin." He didn't look away from Tasik. "You had your time." Tasik's face darkened. "You don't know anything about us." "I know you let her go," Sirin said, voice quiet but lethal. "And that is enough." Gasps rustled through the room. Phones subtly tilted toward them. Guests exchanged glances, whispering under their breath. The tension was tangible. Then Sirin brought a small black velvet box from his pocket. Thelma's stomach tightened. Tasik's eyes widened in disbelief. "Sirin, what are you?" Thelma breathed, unable to move. He opened the box. Inside, a ring gleamed in the light. He took her hand slowly, deliberately, letting everyone in the room see. Then, without hesitation, he slid it onto her finger. The room went silent. "This woman," Sirin said, voice carrying like steel, "is under my protection. Any disrespect will have consequences you cannot imagine." Tasik went pale. "You can't just." "I can," Sirin interrupted, calm, lethal, absolute. "And I will." Thelma's pulse thundered. She realized the ring was more than a symbol. It was a claim, a warning, a boundary reinforced with power. Her ex-fiancé had tried to humiliate her, now he was powerless. He could do nothing while the man beside her radiated authority so dangerous that even speaking felt like a threat. If you're hooked, don't forget to like and subscribe. The next part shows the consequences for anyone who dares cross Sirin. Thelma's hands still trembled as Sirin guided her toward a quieter corner. "You didn't warn me," she whispered. "I warned you once," he replied. "Years ago." She blinked. "Years ago." A small, almost imperceptible smile tugged at his lips. "Do you remember Busan?" Her stomach clenched. Memories flashed, crowded alleys, rain-slicked streets, a man she had only just begun to understand, and how he had intervened before she could comprehend the threat surrounding her. He had saved her. She had trusted him then, and now the instinct returned. I remember," she said softly. "I know you never forgot." "Good." Her heart thudded. That night had been terrifying, but seeing him now, his presence commanding, dangerous, brought back the same mix of fear and trust. Across the room, Tacek tried again, but Siren's presence was overwhelming. The subtle alignment of his men, the controlled posture, the silent authority, it was enough to stop anyone foolish enough to challenge him. "You see the difference?" Sirin asked Thelma. "Yes," she whispered, trembling. The ring felt heavier than ever, a shield, a warning, a claim. "Good. That is protection," he said. "And yet, there's more you should know. Being with me isn't safe. It's exhilarating, terrifying, and sometimes irreversible." Her pulse quickened. "Why do I feel both scared and alive?" "Because I am not safe. I do not play by polite rules. And those who belong to me feel it all. Protection, obsession, inevitability." Tacek made one final attempt to approach. A subtle gesture from Sirin sent one of his men gliding toward him, a silent warning. Tacek froze. His pride, his last attempt at control, evaporated. Guests murmured behind their hands. No one dared intervene. Sirin turned to Thelma. "Do you feel it now? The difference between someone who thinks they matter and someone who actually does?" "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaking. Thelma understood now that her trust wasn't naive, it was survival. The car waited at the edge of the garden. Sirin opened the door for her with effortless authority. She stepped inside, pulse racing. The ring gleamed in the dim light. Possession, protection, obsession. Thelma leaned back, heart pounding. She thought of Tacek, humiliated and powerless. Beside her, Siren's hand rested lightly on hers, a reminder of ownership, protection, and the absolute power he wielded. The car door closed with a quiet finality that seemed to seal the world outside. Inside, the atmosphere was dense. Leather seats, tinted windows, the faint, unmistakable scent of gun oil and expensive cologne. Thelma became acutely aware that she had crossed an invisible line the moment she stepped in. Sirin didn't rush to speak. That alone was unsettling. The engine started smoothly, and the car pulled away from Myra's wedding as if nothing extraordinary had happened. As if a man hadn't just publicly dismantled another in front of a room full of witnesses. Thelma stared at her hand. The ring felt heavier now, its presence undeniable. Not decorative. Functional. "You didn't ask permission," she finally said, breaking the silence. Sirin glanced at her. "You don't need permission when you're being protected." Her throat tightened. "You claimed me in front of everyone." "Yes." That wasn't subtle. It wasn't meant to be. She exhaled shakily. "You humiliated him." Siren's expression didn't change. "No. I corrected an imbalance." Thelma looked away, watching the city lights blur past the window. Her heart was still racing, adrenaline thrumming through her veins. "You said you warned me once," she said. "In Busan." Sirin leaned back slightly, one arm resting along the seat behind her, close enough to remind her he was there, not close enough to overwhelm. "You were 22, he said. "Too curious for your own good." Her chest tightened at the memory. Busan had been supposed to be a break. A solo trip. A chance to prove she could exist without Tasick's shadow hovering over her decisions. She had wandered into the wrong part of the city that night, rain pouring down hard enough to blur street signs. Her phone had died. The alley had been too quiet. Then the men appeared. You didn't scream, Sirin continued. That's what caught my attention. She swallowed. I was scared. You were controlled, he corrected. There's a difference. She remembered the way the men had circled her, speaking too softly, too confidently. The way fear had lodged in her throat like glass. And then you stepped out of the shadows, she whispered. Yes. She could still see him clearly. Black coat. Calm eyes. No panic. No rush. Just authority that bent the night around him. You told them to leave, she said. And they listened. She shivered. I didn't know who you were. You didn't need to. She remembered how one of the men had laughed. How Sirin had looked at him. Just once. That man never laughed again, Sirin said quietly, confirming her unspoken thought. Her fingers tightened in her lap. You followed me after that. For 3 days. Her breath hitched. Why? Because you were still in danger. And you didn't tell me. You wouldn't have believed me, he said. You were still under the illusion that proximity to polite men meant safety. She flinched. I left Busan thinking it was over, she said. Sirin's gaze sharpened. It was paused. The car slowed at a private gate. Security waved them through without question. Thelma's pulse spiked. Where are we going? My house. Her head snapped toward him. That wasn't discussed. No, he agreed. But it's happening. The car wound upward, away from the city noise. When it finally stopped, the estate loomed ahead, minimalist, fortified, quietly imposing. Inside, the silence was different. Intentional. Sirin removed his jacket and draped it over the back of a chair before turning to her. Sit. The word wasn't harsh. It was absolute. She obeyed before she could stop herself. Sirin crouched slightly in front of her, his gaze level with hers. You should understand something, Thelma. Her pulse fluttered wildly. What? Tonight was not improvisation. Her brows knit. What do you mean? I knew Tasick would attempt to humiliate you, he said. Men like him always do when they think they've lost control. Her breath caught. You planned this. I anticipated it. And the ring. Sirin reached for her hand again, turning it gently so the stone caught the light. This ring does not mean marriage, he said. It means jurisdiction. Her lips parted. Jurisdiction. Anyone who touches you now, he continued calmly, answers to me. Anyone who disrespects you answers to me. Anyone who thinks you are accessible without consequence. He met her eyes. Learns otherwise. A chill ran through her. What about what I want? She asked softly. Sirin studied her for a long moment. If you didn't want this, he said slowly, you would not still be wearing it. Her breath trembled. She hadn't even considered taking it off. If you're still listening, comment below. Because this is where curiosity turns into commitment. Sirin stood and moved toward the window, speaking without looking at her. Tasick made a mistake tonight. Thelma frowned. How? He reminded people who he is, Sirin said. And reminded them who he is not. Her stomach twisted. What happens now? Sirin turned back, his eyes dark, unreadable. Now he is being observed. She swallowed. Observed. Every business deal. Every movement. Every weakness. Her heart pounded. You're going to ruin him. I'm going to educate him. A pause. He humiliated you publicly, Sirin added. That debt does not go unpaid. Thelma felt a dangerous thrill ripple through her fear. And me? Sirin approached again, stopping just close enough that she could feel his presence like heat. You, he said quietly, will learn what it means to be untouchable. Her breath stuttered. And if I try to leave? A faint smile curved his lips. You can leave any time. She waited. But, he continued, you won't. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Because you already understand something most people never do, Sirin said. Safety isn't gentle. It's decisive. He reached out, brushing his thumb once over the ring. And you've already been claimed. Thelma closed her eyes for a moment, letting the weight of it settle. When she opened them, she didn't pull away. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, a line had been crossed. And there was no going back. Morning arrived without permission. Thelma woke to silence, so complete it felt curated. No traffic noise. No distant horns. Just the muted hum of a city being kept at bay by distance and authority. She lay still for a moment, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, memories of the night before crashing back in sharp fragments. The ring. The wedding. Taysek's face draining of color. Sirin's voice, calm and absolute, promising consequences. She sat up slowly. The room was elegant in a restrained, deliberate way. Neutral tones. Clean lines. No personal clutter. Nothing unnecessary. It wasn't cold, but it wasn't warm either. It felt like a space designed for control. A soft knock came at the door. Before she could respond, it opened. A woman stepped in, bowing slightly. "Good morning, Miss Thelma. Breakfast is ready." "Miss." The word landed heavier than it should have. "Where's Sirin?" Thelma asked. "Boss is already awake," the woman replied. "He said you would ask." Of course he did. The dining room overlooked the city, glass walls stretching from floor to ceiling. Seoul looked smaller from here. Manageable. Sirin stood near the window, jacket already on, coffee untouched beside him. "You slept," he said without turning. "Yes," she replied. "I didn't expect to." He faced her then. "Fear exhausts the body. And control doesn't," she asked quietly. A faint smile touched his lips. "Control sharpens it." She joined him at the table, her gaze drifting again to the ring. It still felt unreal, like she'd stepped into someone else's life and hadn't been given instructions yet. "People will talk," she said. "They already are." Her heart skipped. "About me." "About us," he corrected. "You became interesting the moment you stopped being accessible." She hesitated. "What does that mean for Taysek?" Sirin took a sip of coffee unhurried. "He's late." "For what?" "For everything." Her phone buzzed on the table. Once. Then twice. She stared at the screen. There were messages from her friend Mira. "Are you okay? What happened last night? Who is he?" Before she could respond, another notification appeared. Unknown number. She opened it. "Did you enjoy the show?" "Because investors didn't." Her breath caught. "That was fast," Sirin murmured, glancing at her phone. "You're monitoring him," she said. "I'm monitoring the reaction to him," he replied. "There's a difference." Her stomach tightened. "He hasn't done anything yet." "He doesn't need to," Sirin said calmly. "Fear spreads faster than action." As if summoned, another message appeared, this one from a mutual acquaintance. "Have you heard about Taysek? His deal with Hamu Group collapsed this morning." Thelma looked up slowly. "That was his biggest account." "Yes, you did that." Sirin didn't deny it. "I made sure the right questions were asked." Her pulse quickened. "You're wrecking him." "I'm allowing him to wreck himself," Sirin corrected. "Men like Taysek rely on image. Remove confidence and the rest follows." Her fingers curled slightly. "All because he embarrassed me?" Sirin's gaze hardened. "Because he forgot his place." The weight of that statement pressed down on her chest. "What is my place?" she asked softly. Sirin studied her for a long moment. "At my side," he said. "Until you decide otherwise." Her heart hammered. "You say that like it's temporary." "It is," he replied. "Everything is. Except consequences." Another vibration. This time, Taysek's name flashed across her screen. Her stomach dropped. Sirin watched her carefully. "Answer if you want." She hesitated. Then she did. "What did you do?" Taysek's voice came through strained, brittle. "I didn't do anything," Thelma replied quietly. "You humiliated me," he snapped. "You let him." "No," she interrupted, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "You humiliated yourself." Silence crackled on the line. "You think hiding behind him makes you powerful?" Taysek scoffed. "You're a phase to men like that." Sirin leaned closer, close enough that Taysek could hear his presence in the shift of air. "She is not a phase," Sirin said into the phone. "And you will not speak to her again." Taysek laughed weakly. "Or what?" There was a pause. Or your remaining accounts disappear by noon, Sirin replied calmly. Choose. The line went dead. Thelma stared at the phone, breath shallow. You didn't even raise your voice. I didn't need to, he said. She stood abruptly, adrenaline surging. This is real. This isn't symbolic. You're ruining him. Sirin rose as well, towering without looming. You still think this is about him? She looked up at him, eyes wide. Isn't it? This is about you understanding what it means to be protected by me, he said. And what it costs. Her voice trembled. What does it cost? Sirin stepped closer, his presence pressing into her space now, deliberate, undeniable. It costs illusion, he said quietly. You don't get to pretend the world is kind anymore. You don't get to believe people are harmless. Her breath caught. And what do I get? You get certainty. He lifted her hand, turning it slightly so the ring caught the morning light. No one touches you without consequence, he continued. No one humiliates you without payment. No one replaces you without regret. Her pulse thundered. And what about you? His gaze darkened. I am the consequence. The words settled between them, heavy and inescapable. Later that afternoon, news began to spread. Quietly. Precisely. Tasek's meetings were cancelled. His name was removed from an advisory board. A sudden audit announced by a regulatory body that had never noticed him before. Thelma watched it unfold from Siren's office, screens displaying data she barely understood but could feel the weight of. This isn't revenge, she said. No, Sirin agreed. It's alignment. She turned to him. What happens when people realize I'm connected to you? Sirin met her gaze. They will behave. And if I don't want them to fear me? A pause. Then they will respect you, he said. Fear is optional. Control is not. She swallowed. You're not letting me go, are you? Sirin approached, stopping inches from her. I'm letting you see, he said softly. Leaving comes later. Her breath trembled. And if I stay? His hand hovered near her waist, not touching, but close enough to feel. Then you become inevitable, he said. Outside, Soul moved on, unaware of the quiet collapse happening within one man's world. Inside, Thelma stood at the edge of something irreversible. And she didn't step back. By evening, Tasek's world was unraveling faster than rumor could keep up. Thelma didn't need updates anymore. She could feel it in the atmosphere of the house, in the quiet efficiency of the staff, in the way Siren's men moved with sharpened focus, phones murmuring low-voiced confirmations as they passed through corridors. Consequences were no longer theoretical. They were active. Sirin stood at the edge of the balcony, city lights stretching endlessly below. From here, Soul looked obedient, glowing and contained, like something that knew better than to misbehave. Thelma joined him, folding her arms against the cool night air. People are going to associate me with this. Yes, he said. With fear. Fear fades, Sirin replied. Memory does not. She watched his reflection in the glass. Calm. Controlled. Not a single crack in the armor. Do you ever stop? She asked quietly. He turned his head slightly. Stopping is how men like Tasek survive. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Mira. She hesitated before answering. What is happening? Mira whispered, panic barely contained. Tasek was escorted out of the reception venue this morning. He says you did this. Thelma closed her eyes briefly. I didn't. But he says. He's wrong, she said, voice steady. And you should distance yourself. A pause. Who is he? Mira asked. Thelma glanced at Sirin. He didn't intervene. Didn't instruct. Didn't stop her. He's someone who doesn't forgive disrespect, she said. Mira inhaled shakily. Are you safe? Thelma looked at the ring again. Yes, she answered. For the first time in a long while. The call ended. She exhaled slowly. That was the last person still pretending this was normal. Sirin nodded once. Normalization is optional. They were interrupted by one of his men stepping forward, bowing slightly. He's requesting to speak with you. Thelma's stomach tightened. Tasek. Yes. Her first instinct was refusal. Her second was curiosity. Sirin studied her carefully. This is not necessary. I know, she said. But I want to see him. A pause. Very well, Sirin said. But you will not be alone. They met Tasic in a private room off Sirin's office. Gone was the polished confidence. Gone was the effortless cruelty. Tasic sat stiffly, suit wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. He stood abruptly when they entered, then hesitated, uncertain. Thelma felt something unexpected. Not triumph. Closure. You look different, Tasic said hoarsely. So do you, she replied calmly. He glanced at Sirin, then back at her. You planned this. She shook her head. No. You did. His jaw tightened. You think he'll keep you? Men like him don't keep women. They collect them. Sirin stepped forward. Tasic flinched. She is not a collection, Sirin said evenly. She is a decision. Tasic laughed bitterly. You think you own her? Sirin didn't answer. Thelma did. No, she said. He doesn't own me. He respects the cost of crossing me. Tasic's face crumpled. I loved you. She studied him for a long moment. No. You loved how small I was with you. Silence filled the room. Tasic swallowed. What do you want? Thelma considered the question carefully. I want you to leave, she said. Not just the room. The circle. The illusion that you matter to me. Sirin nodded slightly. Tasic stood there for a moment longer, then turned and walked out without another word. The door closed. Thelma exhaled. That was unnecessary, Sirin said. But it was mine, she replied. He looked at her then, really looked at her. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. Later that night, she stood in front of the mirror in the guest suite, studying herself. Same face. Same body. Different gravity. She heard him before she saw him. You're thinking too loudly, Sirin said from the doorway. She didn't turn. I'm thinking about choice. He approached slowly. And? You said leaving comes later. Yes. When? When staying stops feeling inevitable. She faced him. Does it ever? A pause. No, he admitted. But wanting to leave is important. She stepped closer, heart pounding. Because it means you're here because you choose to be, he said. Not because you're trapped. She reached for his hand, resting it against her waist deliberately. I don't feel trapped, she said. I feel elevated. His breath deepened. Dangerous word. She smiled faintly. I know. Siren's hand tightened slightly, not possessive, but grounding. You should understand something before you go any further. Her pulse raced. What? I do not love gently, he said. I do not share. I do not retreat. She met his gaze without flinching. Neither do I anymore. The silence between them stretched, charged. Outside, the city pulsed on, unaware that a woman who had once been humiliated at a wedding had just rewritten the terms of her existence. She rested her forehead briefly against his chest, breathing him in. Power. Control. Certainty. Stay, he said quietly. Not a command. An invitation. She lifted her head. I already have. And if you've stayed till now, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because this isn't just a romance. It's a reminder that power changes everything. Then, her phone buzzes. A message flashes. They know who you are. And they're coming for you. Thelma stiffens, pulse quickening. She looks up at Sirin. His eyes are calm. But tonight, even calm feels dangerous. No one touches you without consequence, he murmurs, his hand brushing hers. But this time, she realizes, the danger isn't outside. It's inside. Someone wants her. Someone independent. Someone powerful. And they're ready to challenge the one man who claimed her. Thelma swallows. Her choice is no longer whether to be protected. It's whether to survive, to fight, or to take control of the world that Sirin has built around her. This time, power, obsession, and betrayal collide. Who really holds control? Is it the woman or the Korean Mafia boss who claimed her?